I think the act of making a film and watching a film is very different, and what you take from a film is one thing, and what you put into it is a different thing. So I cannot speak for Cronenberg and his experience, but what I can do is say that we prefaced that interview with that little clip from the film in which the thing is, how dark are you willing to go? And on one level, this is very dark. I mean, the story is Vincent Cassel is Karsh, who was a businessman behind grave tech company, typically Cronenbergian company, who have developed this technology in which, when someone dies, their body can be put in a shroud, that their loved ones are then able to watch those bodies decomposing, because of the technology of the shroud. And Karsh has lost his wife. She is now part of the grave tech project, and he finds solace in watching the decomposition. He finds it reassuring, even though his doctor tells him at some point, grief is rotting your teeth. He's also close to his wife's identical sister, also played by Dan Kruger, and he has an AI assistant named Honey, who appears to be a third incarnation of that same character. That was the triple role that I was speaking of. And then there's a sort of plot, a narrative plot, which is that grave tech gets hacked, and we open up this whole sort of conspiracy thing. Who's hacked it? Why have they hacked it? What's the point of the hack? And there is this sort of strange mystery, which is that he is starting to notice that there are strange growths appearing on his wife's decomposing body. So now, look, that as a film made by somebody who has lost their wife and has expressed the grief of that is about as dark as you can get. And I think that when the film played at Cannes last year, some of the response from critics was bamboozled, because it was interesting in that interview, David Cronenberg said people didn't know if they were allowed to laugh at certain things. It was really interesting when he talked about comedy is really important because humor is part of a survival mechanism. And I love the fact that he said that, because that idea about horror and humor and grief and humor, all those things mixed in, there is a survival mechanism. And he sort of said we have evolved humor as a survival mechanism. So in terms of where this sits in Cronenberg's oeuvre, forgive me for using that word, but there is no other thing. He returns constantly to themes which have interested and obsessed him throughout his life. And those are themes of identity, of what it means to be human, of the divide between the body and is there a soul? Is there a different thing? Or are we simply part of the body? He's often talked about films like The Fly, which is really a film about aging. It's not a film about turning into a fly. It's a film about the body changing and the body mutating. The Videodrome thing, Long Live the New Flesh. He is really, really fundamentally interested, fascinated by the human condition in which we are born and live in a body that then fails, or maybe failure is, it then ceases and then goes into the next one. And that is what is going on here. Now, the previous film that he referred to, The Crimes of the Future, I felt like that was like kind of a rehashing of old ideas. It was just going back to old Cronenbergian riffs and rehashing them. I mean, the script had been around for a while, as he said. In the case of this, I think it's the opposite. I think it's reinventing those ideas. And I felt the thing that made me, and that was why I used that word at the end of the interview, made me happy, was I felt like it was creating new material, new life, new ideas, new things to think about. And, as I said, all his films they're about ideas, and people used to, he's made films with exploding heads and he's made films with, yeah, but that's not what they're about. Those are metaphors. Those things are metaphors. They are ideas made flesh. That's what he was doing. And, if you're watching the Shrouds and you're chasing the plot and trying to figure out the Guy Pearce role in the weird conspiracies, and is it the Chinese, or is it that's really not what the film is about. All that stuff is the kind of science fiction trapping. I mean, David Cronenberg has often used these sort of science fiction institutes like the Soma Free Institute in The Brood, for example. But they're just really a mechanism, a narrative mechanism to get you into a discussion of much, much deeper things. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be dead? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to miss somebody's physical presence? So I thought it was strange and elegiac and occasionally absurd, deliberately so. People may laugh at it or with it, or they may roll their eyes, or they may do as some did in Cannes and just not get it. But I've seen it a couple of times now, and I think that it takes a crushing experience of loss and uses it as a starting point for a film which is actually ultimately uplifting and is proof that, even at this advanced stage of his life, Cronenberg is as lively and as nimble with his ideas as he ever was. And can I also just say, as you heard him talking in that interview, there is a man that talks in whole sentences.
Mm-hmm.
There is a man that answers questions with every, and is assuming that everyone is stepping up and doing this properly. It's yeah, I love his films, and I'm a big fan of the Shrouds, and I definitely hope that the new film happens.